14 August 2023, just like a few days before the 2023 elections. I want to talk something about policy. All right. In Zimbabwe right now, Edim Nangagwa likes to point out that there is a housing boom, meaning that there's a lot of people that are willing to buy houses, to build houses on a larger scale than before. But I've got a problem with most of the houses that are being built. They're of poor quality. I mean, the houses themselves are poor quality or not up to standard, and the suburbs themselves also are not well maintained, they're not well planned. We've heard of land barons who sell illegal council land to people and leading to illegal backlands, and many people they've lost their houses and stains through demolitions and stuff like that. So it's just like hip hazard. We've got a lot of people in the diaspora right now that want to build houses in Zimbabwe because they are earning money. Now here's the thing, as the new government is going to come into power, or the government that of Edim Nangagwa if he carries on, or the government of what's his name, Nelson Chamisa, one of the issues that we have to look at critically in Zimbabwe and definitely work hard on is housing, the housing issue. We need to develop a policy of monitoring or regulating uh, um, the construction industry for the purposes of standardization, building codes, okay, across the country. I've been working on that today, and I'm thinking that and the government should be at the forefront of a massive infrastructural build across the country, massive building of family homes starting from 3 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms is like 5 rooms. Okay, 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, sitting room, lounge, and bathroom, and veranda, and stuff like that. And even and having other variations, perhaps of two-bedroom ones, or four or 5 bedrooms. But my suggestion is that the government should be the one that sponsors this massive drive. So one way of doing it, you could have some other suburbs that just have one plan, or a block of or some area with one plan, another area with another plan, or another place where there's a mix, on other places where people can choose between, I mean, within 4 or 5 options or whatever. You can play around with creativity, just for something for urban planning. But however, the reasoning behind this is so that there should be a central planner for this massive housing build across the country, so that it will look orderly and nice and neat and trustworthy. So if the if the government ventilates all of this, then there is trustworthy within the people that want to buy houses, people that are in the diaspora. We know that many of them have lost money to relatives. They send money for bricks. The relatives keep on sending pictures of the next door house. When you come back from UK after 10 years, your house is not built. Okay, but if it is a government that does through that does it in such a way that you can actually buy a house when you're in the UK and you pay monthly installments, for example. Okay, if it is a government thing, we could come up with a product for Zimbabweans who work in the UK, who can prove that they have gotten a salary in the UK every month, and they can pay a monthly installment while it's the government builds the house. The government doesn't always have to be the owner of this company 100%. The government could be giving out tenders to different construction companies. So I'm going to leave out the details of how it's going to be shared. Of course, that is be something, a matter to discuss with the various companies during that time. But you get the picture that this is a centralized idea, okay, pushed by the government. Massive home building. Okay, I'm just talking about home building now. Massive home building across the whole country. So with tight regulations, okay, the plans are known. People that are building, they must be well qualified inspectors, making sure everything is right. it's up to standard, so that at the same time roads can be built which are standardized, streets, street lighting, or tower lights, or street naming, and organizing the suburbs, including parks and recreational areas. So if you are planning, if you have got this housing plan which is national, it's easy to 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 have a properly planned country. Not this thing that we have in Zimbabwe, where it's just like suburbs just pop up and they're ugly. Look at Culture Park; it's really ugly. Okay, I come from Nqobani. Nqobani was built in the early 80s. It was nice. Okay, back then when they used to do nice things. In Cultural Park, people were just given stands. Some of the houses were built by the government, I guess. They were better. But then, if you look now with the people who build their own houses, it's good snacks. It's not nice. I don't like that. No, 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 I don't like that. I want my country to be nice. And we need to move on from building ghetto housing. By ghetto housing, I mean these funny looking structures. Like the chagili, like they're not even straight, and they are leaking. They've got. They are not just. They're just. They're not right. Okay, we need to have a proper standard, proper decent housing that really will. That shows what the government respects its own people. Whilst we were still at it, I said roads in those suburbs that we are going to build new suburbs and stuff like that. So we will have to build a road system. First of all, I was thinking that uh, 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 the road that you must prioritize are the ones that are going to be used by public transport infrastructure. The government should spearhead another massive national uh, mass transit system, minibuses based. By minibus, I mean like not the combis, but the bigger ones, like the Zubcos, not the 75-seater, perhaps the 35-seater and stuff like that. Um, Something of that nature that uh, will be able to service urban mobility between city and the suburbs and the townships. So, by the way, I want us to eliminate that township mentality. Okay, we should have affordable suburbs, but township has got a connotation of ghettoism, because as we're going to fight poverty in other videos, when I talk about my policy of fighting poverty, we will need to get rid of the ghetto, because the ghetto is for poor people. So we are fighting poverty in the whole country in the next government. So no poverty at all. So if no one is poor, no one must stay in that location. That location is for names for other countries that are poor. But Zimbabwe is going to be a rich country. We're all having suburbs. Okay, so this I'm envisioning a transportation system. I say that we prioritize building roads where the buses are going to be moving, where you have bus stops as well that are well lit, safer from other adverse weather conditions, perhaps with the shade, so that if it's raining or it's too windy, there's a place people can just stand under the bus stop and it can close. I mean, I do have a design in my mind. I can see through bus stop. Imagine a 3 by 6 see-through bus stop that has got a potential to have an enclosure of some sort, when to protect against adverse weather conditions. At the same time, have a toilet system, public toilet system in those bus stops. Of course, not all bus stops. You probably will have major bus stops, and then you have those minor ones that you might not have. You might not need to develop such an infrastructure. But I don't want to get into the details of it. But I just want to say that that minibus system would serve cities, all major cities and smaller cities, and combine that with also an intercity uh, transit system, like from Bulawayo to Harare to Masvingo to Motare. That does not have to be owned by the government. uh, it can have buses that are owned by individuals, but the system managed by the government. The government should be at the forefront of creating a systematic way of public mobility, okay, within cities and also to the rural areas as well. So we need to put tar to all the rural areas. Okay, that's like a must. Okay, like I'm tired of this thing that rural areas is dusty road. It's crazy. We need to put tar in all rural areas and then introduce smart buses. We need to respect our people, right? We need to give them human, there's some dignity. And if these companies also the buses, I don't want the government to own the buses that transit people from the towns to the rural areas. I want it to be privately owned, okay, by multiple people. But however, I want the government to be the ones that uh, is at the forefront of setting up the ranks, the ranks where the buses rank and the bus stops across the old rural areas. The, the whole system that supports uh, this whole industry of public mobility across towns and villages. It has to be spearheaded by the government for the sake of incubating that sector, not for the government to own the sector. Perhaps the government might have one company that also has got some buses to some rural areas, but the majority of these buses I envision to be owned by public, private individuals, and spread the net, not promote a monopoly capitalism. Because the problem with monopoly capitalism is that all the profits will go to one person. My intention is to create an economy that is uh, I want to fight poverty, right? So I want the means of production to be in the hands of as many people as possible, as compared to what it is doing today with Takwere, where almost everything is owned by them. So all the profits go to them. So if all profits accrue to one person or few people or few individuals, they tend to bank outside the country, externalize, and then the economy suffers opportunity cost that would have uh, been available if the means of production was owned by a broader base of people. So you will see that in such a scenario, the propensity to spend will be larger, okay, and the and the money would change hands much faster because it's little profits to everyone instead of all the profit to a few people. You get what I'm saying? So that is why I want to open up the transport system, the bus system to be owned by many people, including the city ones between the city and the suburbs. I would recommend that government would carry on with Zopco. Zopco, you should have that one. Zopco is highly subsidized, and then you have the combis as well, the combi system because it is faster. The thing with buses is that the buses are slower. They they move in time or on time, but the combis are smaller and faster, sleek, so and more expensive. Those who want that convenience of combis should have the ability to use them. And but the government also must be the supporter of that business, of that industry. We need to incubate it and make sure that we make sure our entrepreneurs are successful. So for example, if I want to say that we're building our roads, they're nice. Now our the people that who own combis in Zimbabwe who will say we don't want these old combis, they must all have new combis. Now if they say they don't have money, the government must provide the financing for those combis, and the people would pay back the money. Okay, they must pay. Okay, they will have to pay back the money. Like, but as long as we've got an industry that is going well. You see where I'm going at now. Now I've spoken about the transportation industry. I'm talking about the housing industry. The housing industry as well. All these houses will be built by different construction companies. We need to spread out the tenders and business to as many people, as varied people as possible, not just people from one clan, but also consider people from different clans, different regions of the country, so that we eliminate this thing that it is Chinu Chavo or Chinu Chedu. It's for everybody. All right. And another thing as well, public toilets as well, whilst we're talking about housing, and also malls. We need to build in indoor malls across this across the country. So government as well plays a role in allocating land that it will be available for malls. Therefore, private capital can chip in to build those malls that are nice, classy, modern. I'm talking about a modern Zimbabwe, yeah, modernizing the country. So that would be essential uh, as well. And of course, in industrial land, uh, that can be allocated in the industry's business, or business people will actually fund their own building as long as we've got building codes. Okay, so the construction industry must be very much codified, regulated, and there must be an effective management of our infrastructural build in the country, including skyscrapers, or how we regulate double stories in the suburbs. By the way, I think it's high time we will introduce double stories and high rise, and build a lot of high rise buildings for accommodative purposes in a country. So just a mix of all of these. So that will be a discussion that will be had with the appropriate um, professionals who deal with things like that. So I'm just giving in a bird's eye view of my vision for the better Zimbabwe. So much for construction. What is it that I want to talk about? Yes, another thing that I want to talk about is the development of towns and cities, understanding, having a conceptual understanding of what the town is, what it serves. For example, talk of Bulawayo or Harare. Why is there poverty or unemployment in Bulawayo and Harare? It is because we have not yet identified the economic activity that keeps the city alive. The reason why a city is a city is because there is an economic activity within that city that needs people to come and work there, because the people who work there, they need a place where to stay, to live, to build houses. So the suburbs serve as places for people who work in that city. So we know that Bulawayo and Harare, they used to be industrial cities, so they've been deindustrializing, therefore leading to unemployment and people leaving Zimbabwe to other countries for greener pastures. But the problem is that even in other countries, they become second-class citizens, and therefore they need to come back home, brings us to a point whereby it is now the role of government to industrialize, to plan about what industries are going to be around, what industries are going to be in Bulawayo, in Gweru, and other cities that we will develop. So that kind of conceptual thinking will help you to think that okay, so how do I create employment, or why am I creating employment? I'm I'm creating employment because I've got industries. Because I've got industries, they've got people that work there. Because there's people that work there, and therefore need suburbs to build. There's a reason. Some of the people that are in the diaspora are building within the suburbs because it's their home. Okay, there's another reason. They're not in the city because they're saving the industries in the cities, because they grew up there. So you are in London or USA, you want to buy a house in Harare. Why? You don't work in Harare, but it's because it's your home, it's your home country. So there's an aspect of it. So what we have in Zimbabwe is that our home country has got no jobs, but it is still our home country. So you still build houses, buy houses in your home country, even though there's no job in that home country. So what I'm saying that now it is not the role of an individual to create employment, but it is rather the role of government to think about those things and begin therefore to re-industrialize Zimbabwe. I've got a massive industrial mandate that God has given me for the nation of Zimbabwe. I've just spoken about the two industries, housing, transport, but there is a plethora of industries that we will talk about that are on my mind, that we really need to work on effect, so that we can have an efficient economic system that is robust, sophisticated, and able to withstand various pressures both within or from outside the country. And yeah, so that's in a nutshell, this is just a tidbit of what I'm thinking about as far as the new Zimbabwe that is that is coming is concerned. Uh, what else did I want to talk about on this video? Or concerning unemployment, uh, I do believe that we should have an unemployment office that is, or labor office that is dedicated to understanding uh, and studying and documenting employment trends in the country, and coming up with employment indices and yeah, indices that we will keep track and we will focus on. When it comes to unemployment, it's not enough for me just to have a percentage of, oh, 20% youth unemployment or whatever percent unemployment or whatever, yeah. Or you know, I want to know, oh, which unemployment or which people are qualified for what and which ones are not. And we need to use artificial intelligence and deep learning in order to be able to match people with jobs, or to have analytical models that can help us build a robust economic system that will be able to address unemployment so that we can achieve full employment. Full employment is defined as uh, creating jobs for everybody that wants to work. Obviously, there's some people who just don't want to work, so they're not part of full employment. So, okay, so that has to be to do with government being a living entity that is able to look across the economy and be able uh, to uh, to to strategize and even support different industries. Okay, emerging industries. All right, like especially in the technology and information technology, fintech, uh, the fourth industrial revolution, stuff like that. So all of those are opportunities for employment, and they will tend to bring in also from foreign labor. You must think about that. Foreign labor is going to come, and we will need foreign skills as well, especially if we're talking about uh, digital digitalization of the nation. So we will need special skills that will come and pour into the country, which speaks now to education. You see, this thing like the loop. The more I speak about this thing and other things just come into play, it speaks about education as well. So I have been envisioning an education system that is e-based and very much technologically advanced, whereby every single classroom in Zimbabwe must have a big computer board. That board, it must be a big computer screen, all right, that is with cameras in the class, that is connected to other classrooms across the country and the whole education system, whereby we are able to even to have a lesson that can be broadcasted to all the classrooms across the country. Okay, even if it might not be the same time. For example, it might be, you can download something, you can just send to all schools and say, okay, at least this week, children, grade 3 children are all listening to this 30-minute video, whatever. So, kind of, I'm thinking of things like that. Okay, it must be digital. Every child must not only have a book on their desk, but they must also have a tablet that they can take home, that they can interact with their teacher. And because of that, we would be able, as the educational department, will be able to keep track of all the students in the country through the digital platform, through the use of artificial intelligence and deep learning and those other and those resources in the IT sector. We are able, therefore, to create educational products that are tailor made for the needs of the students and the needs of industry. And we are able to grow or groom or create a school curriculum that is really dynamic and not too static. I think that our curriculum is too static. If Zimbabwe wants to compete in the global world going forward, we need to develop a curriculum that that adapts very quickly with the changing times, and a curriculum that is not monolithic across the whole country. I think there's some things that every child should learn at school, but however, I think we need to diversify our subjects and be able to, on an earlier age, be able to identify the subjects that kids are interested in, and be able to teaching them what is happening on the field now, so that they can be the moment a child finishes O level, they are able to participate in the economy even before they even go to high school, even to university, because they are because what they are learning is relevant to what is the economy demands. Therefore, educational specialists that interface with industry and global trends are necessary to be always ever tweaking that system, getting it robust and the first of its kind in the whole world. Listen here, we don't do things because Americans are doing them. We do things because we need to do them, and we see a need within our own community to do that. So that is my understanding of my vision for education. So it also grows all the way to adult learning. I do believe that, or I we envision that all Zimbabweans should have a tablet for learning. Everyone, even people that are working, even 60-year-olds, everybody should be learning a course of some sort. Okay, that will increase the educational level of the country. I don't like this thing yokuthi ndapedza chikoro sengaqeda isikolo love loqedayo. Education should carry on. People must carry on reading, people are learning, adapting, and whether it's learning through school or learning through the companies that we have we set up, we need to create cultures of training, retraining, and getting our people to learn new skills, even though they might not immediately need those skills now, but it should come as an insurance, as the economy around the global economy is going to be perversely changing over time because of a creative destruction that entrepreneurship brings. And therefore, I do not want an economy that's going to grow on certain sector, and then if that sector is disrupted by some other emerging technology, the whole economy of the country goes down. So we need a robust country that is has got a citizenry that is well educated through consistent and persistence, retraining, e-learning, relearning, and advancing in various fields, including even leading new emerging fields that may not be known by other people in other countries, but might have just have developed in Zimbabwe because of our curiosity to learn. So we really do need to develop that curiosity to learn. If we are like that, and we adapt our nation to take that trajectory, I do believe that Zimbabwe could be a leading powerhouse, not only in the region of SADC, but in Africa, and promote peace and tranquility in the whole region as well, setting standards that other countries in Africa may begin to learn from. So we set this template that will help Africa to get out of its poverty problems. And I think that Zimbabwe can, Zimbabwean companies and the Zimbabweans that want to go with me into Africa will be able to replicate what we're doing in Zimbabwe through our companies. They become multinationals into Africa and the Asias and the other countries, Europe as well, and Americas. We can just start from home, from Zimbabwe into Africa and stuff like that. So I hope you see the vision that I'm driving at here, whereby you must have a small base, which is Zimbabwe, to where you are able to create stuff, and then from that base you grow into the region and into the whole world. So how that is going to be is going to be determined by the structure of the economy as we go. So you do not really have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 15-year plan, because the globe is changing so fast. You need to be agile. Your plan, there is core values that are going to guide you, core principles, economic principles, like the agenda, the core agenda is to achieve full employment, adapt a robust economy that is dynamic and is able to adapt to changing global trends. Full employment. He said, keep on talking about full employment, fighting poverty, and enriching ourselves. You see what I'm talking about? But then you cannot have the 10-20 year plan that is on the dot, like to say, this is what we'll do and nothing else. Because we do not know how the economy was going to be like in 10 years' time, or the technologies that are going to be technologies and opportunities in 20 years' time from now. So agility is important. At the same time, you must have some core principles that will guide you, that do not change because of their nature. They do not change no matter the technologies. For example, full employment will not change. Doesn't matter which technology. Fighting poverty will not change. Income inequality, fighting that will not change, and growing GDP will not change. Okay, so yeah, if I have got time, I'll talk about my vision for the agricultural and the mining sector. I like the agricultural sector because we need to produce our own food. I like the mining sector because we are well endowed with multiple minerals. We need to find a way, an effective way, cheaper way, and most humane way of doing our mining. And we need to get rid of our korokos, and most of them, they must get proper jobs, because what they're doing is really uh, it's, it's not what they it's not what's best for them. If they had better options, they wouldn't be korokosing. They will be with their tablets learning new skills and using those skills in the industries that we're creating, and leaving mining to medium and large scale firms. And therefore, which also takes me to another issue of electricity, providing electricity in the country. I do believe that first and foremost, priority must be given to productive sectors, meaning that we must produce electricity for the firms that have that are involved in an economic um, in an economic activity, so that they can be we uh, I mean those that expect returns. Okay, so they can pay taxes, so that we can finance our power generation, because there's a very heavy capital intensive industry, obviously government owned as well. ZESA, Zimbabwe Electrical Supply Authority, will need billions to uh build coal power plants in Wanke, Sanyati, and improve the oh, go ahead with the hydro power plant that we planned with Zambia. It's a $4 billion one, right? So if Zambia is supposed to go with us, but if they are slow, we should pick up the bill. We will discuss payment plans with Zambia, or how we're gonna go about it. But we will need to raise that $4 billion to build that hydro capacity there, because I do envision that as our economy grows and our cities grows, we are going to demand more electricity. I think at the moment they say we need 2.2 kilowatts or gigawatts, 2.2 gigawatts in Zimbabwe. It might go to 5, somewhere there. Okay, I hope I'm right by gigawatts, or whatever it may be. From 2.2, I think we might go to 5 or 6 as the economy grows. So we need, I will heavily borrow from the financial markets money to capacitate our power production. By the way, if we can get gas from the Carbora bus project there, that is still underway. I hope we're going to find success there. Turn that gas into electricity as well. We also can buy gas from Mozambique, gas from Angola, and also Tanzania, and produce our own gas. At the same time, we can also buy crude oil from Angola and crude oil from Namibia and refined in the country. I do think that we need a refinery in Zimbabwe. That's a huge infrastructure that costs billions. That I am willing to go into the financial markets, raise funds for that long-term bonds. So that is why I'm saying these things are commercial in nature. They've got there is a pathway of how they're gonna bring returns. Because as I said that the electricity we're providing to businesses that already are economic. So there's an economic return to the businesses and also to government through taxes directly from those businesses and also from the taxes that will emanate as the downstream businesses that are connected to the primary users of electricity come into play as well. So this whole interplay will create income for the government that the government will have to use to repay the debt on this massive infrastructural build. And with fuel importation of crude oil, Africa's got a problem with the refineries. We don't have much refineries, so the government needs to take that step, a first step in actually building refineries in Zimbabwe that not just saves Zimbabwe but saves the whole region. You know, Petro SA used to produce, I think, is it, do they say over 200 products from petroleum? We can do that, plastic and all those other things that speaks to the multitudes of industries that will emanate from the petrochemical industries. So we really become a global power in manufacturing. So you see, we do not have oil in Zimbabwe, but Namibia and Angola has. I do believe that in Botswana there is in the marshes there is oil. They must check it. And in Zimbabwe, I do believe there's some oil in Zimbabwe. Is it maybe I'm very I did a video last year whereby I had a dream of in which we found oil in Zimbabwe in one of the rivers. It is a dream that God gave me last year. So there is oil in Zimbabwe. So, but then I don't want to be too spiritual on this video. Oh, okay. So we should have a company, Zim Oil, I would like to call it, a government owned Zimbabwean company uh, that is an oil giant, just like BP, British Petroleum. Now, that company should be partly owned by government and also other Zimbabwean investors. It must it must drill for oil. We must drill for oil in Namibia. We must drill for oil in Mozambique, in Angola, across Africa, even all over the world. Just like BP and Chevron, they're drilling all over the world. Even that Zimbabwean company can drill all over the world. So it doesn't have to drill in Zimbabwe. It can drill outside the country. You see, even our by diamond mine companies can mine outside Zimbabwe. Just because the company is owned by the Zimbabwean government doesn't mean that it must only operate in Zimbabwe. It can operate outside Zimbabwe. Hence, I'm talking about the strategy of going into Africa. We need to participate in the DRC. Okay, so when they are mining the lithium and the cobalt in DRC, we need to have our companies that grow into Africa. So you see now, as we are talking about the strategy of going into Africa, it's supposed to be government initiated. The government that should have that how to call it, that to be that central avenue where our businesses that can ventilate our businesses into Africa, all of them. So that is where we all come together as the Zimbabwean industrialists in order to be able to build this engine and take it forward into Africa and into the whole world, which makes it very necessary for the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. I've been making videos against the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe and the attack, the illegal attack on the Zimbabwean dollar. It has been happening for over 20 years. This creation of so-called phantom money, where people will create money through fractional reserve banking for the purposes of buying the US dollar, thereby increasing the value of the US dollar. I mean, the price of the US dollar in Zimbabwe, therefore inflating inflation, in Zimbabwe. They've been doing it over and over and over again. I think it's unfair. I think it's illegal. I think it's corrupt. It's vile. It's evil. You know, all those people that participate in that, need to stop, and my government will work night and day to make sure that that doesn't happen. We will not leave no stone unturned to make sure that we are able to maintain a stable currency. My currency regime, I envision that we have a stable currency, a currency that doesn't neither get stronger or get weaker, so that we will be able to manage our exports and import industries. So that is necessary. So I do have a plan on how we can create more money through, I mean, of course, through money creation, bank money creation, but we need to channel that created money into industrialization. Okay, so industrialization that does not need much of foreign currency. So the reason why we need to industrialize, I want to cut our reliance on foreign currency or foreign products that make that necessitate this need for a foreign currency. So you see, some most of the inflation in Zimbabwe is caused by the fact that the imports coming to the country are actually imports from other countries. So producers or sellers or business people in Zimbabwe are forced to get to buy a US dollar. So because there is a US dollar price inflation in Zimbabwe that is artificially inflated by these criminals, it it therefore translates to inflation into the whole economy of Zimbabwe. So imagine if the Zimbabwean products were not imported from outside, but rather were sourced locally. So it does not matter what the US rate would be, right? Because the producers would have to use Zimbabwean dollar anyway. So I would want to eliminate that over reliance on the US dollar. So I think we must de-risk on ever on the using de-risk our use or bring down the leverage on the use of the US dollar through uh, export substitution by producing things in the country. All right. So that is where the industrialization thing comes in, and as it grows, we usually sell to other countries as well and get foreign currency. So that accumulation of foreign currency in the country is going to lead to a positive balance of payments that has got an effect of increasing the value of the Zimbabwean dollar over time. I like that. Now, but I'll tell you what I want to do with it, because uh, our our Zimbabwean dollar becomes much stronger over and over again because we're getting more US dollars and than we need. Therefore, the market will be having more US dollars than the Zim dollars. So the value of the US dollar will automatically become lower and lower and lower within Zimbabwe. Or rather, spoken in other terms, the value of the Zimbabwean dollar will become stronger and stronger and stronger. However, I do not want a currency that gets stronger and stronger and stronger, because it's bad for my in some of my export oriented industries. So what I will need is that, so the banks therefore are able to create money, that excess money that they create in order to stabilize the currency is the money that we will use to expand industrialization in the country. I do not know if you can understand it. uh, so because, let me put it again, because the currency Zimbabwean currency is getting stronger, right? One way that the central bank can make it stable is to print more Zimbabwean dollars. That printing of the Zimbabwean dollars will lessen the strength, but they will print as much just to stabilize. So what I'm saying is, those printed dollars, we have this ability to print a lot of dollars without causing inflation or 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 a run on the Zim dollar. So that extra money that is created is what's going to be used to industrialize the country instead. So so we need economic minds, economic geniuses that are dedicated on looking into these things. We have a lot of economic councils that focus on various aspects of the economy of Zimbabwe. So not just one broad economy is looking at everything, but specialization within the economy for the purposes of making sure that the money that you create actually does go into industrialization. And so, being an economist is going to be a job that a lot of people will need to participate in because we have different specialties. So we really become this financial power hub, that is. Based on our intellectual abilities to manage our economy and our systems. So it's a country that is systems based. So it is these systems that will make us powerful as a country, and our managerial skill, the skill set to actually maintain the systems, understand the systems, and understand the threats that undermine the systems, and be able to find ways of which we can mitigate those stress through a political and social system that is conducive and supportive of that, which is different from what we currently have. That just serves Bamberinas and just serve a few individuals as well, and doesn't care about all the other economic indicators or values. So we need values, Judeo-Christian values. Okay, the values of the Bible, they are the ones that can be an anchor for a governance system that will be able to satisfy the needs of its people and ensure a continued growth trajectory even after us, who would be the founding fathers of this emerging system, have gone out of the picture. So our litmus test for the success of this thing is not just our ability to build it, but also the ability of the system to be self-sustaining without us who build it. So that for me is very key, because you can build a strong system that is more reliant on the persons that are in there. So what if those persons are gone? How do you know that the ones that will come next are going to carry on with the legacy? So it is the way that we build that system over time that through iteration, we're going to finally nip it and get our house in order. Okay, my name is Nqobani Zondo. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for listening. My name is Nqobani Zondo. As I said, it is my dream that you give me an opportunity to lead you as a society into birthing this Zimbabwe, this new Zimbabwe that I am talking of. Have a great morning. Okay, I want to add on that video a few aspects. I did speak about building roads to the rural areas, right? I think that we need to, it's high time that we put roads to rural areas. Then also there's going to be development of smaller towns, because some rural areas now are actually mining towns. So as we industrialize, there will be some places that will grow, smaller towns that will grow. So we need roads that connect to those smaller towns. And in that road system, one thing that is important, there must be an electrification that is leading towards the small towns, connecting the small towns through electricity, and also water systems, dams that will connect to the smaller towns. So water infrastructure is one also infrastructure that I didn't speak about in the previous video, because water infrastructure is important. Water is going to be one of the reasons why countries will go to war. India and China have got a potential of going to war in the future over water, because as water becomes scarce, water from the Himalayas might actually be a source of conflict. We see there's conflict of water as well between Ethiopia and Egypt, and Sudan over the Blue Nile. Yeah, so we see also in the United States, the inner states are facing water problems. The Arizona and what's that river? Yeah, California as well. Water is going to be a critical resource going forward. We at the moment, we've got a lot of water that flows through the Zambezi River coming into Kariba Dam. We're thankful for the former white government that built Lake Kariba. that was a great undertaking. So because of that, Lake Kariba has got a potential of providing water to the whole country, creating multiple watersheds across the regions. Well, of course, we've always known about the Zambezi Bulawayo water pipeline that I do believe that the current administration is busy working on. We need that for irrigation of Matabeleland North and all the way down to Matabeleland South and the Midlands as well. So I envision that us building more dams, I mean, big dams that are regional dams, also dams that are serving smaller communities, especially in the villages, with the capacity of cleaning water. I am tired of this thing that the rural folks are drinking water that is not clean because it makes their teeth brown and it's unhealthy for them in the long run. And I do think that we must be able to provide clean water in the rural areas. If it is possible, we must have JoJo's. Every single rural home must have a big JoJo that a truck will come and fill periodically, so that we eliminate the need for rural folks to walk long distances going to the dams to fetch water. Water in dams in the rural areas must be for livestock. I think in that because the livestock are able to they are mobile. But in any case, the, oh, I don't want my thoughts to be all over the place. There is a formalized way that you need to develop on managing the livestock in the rural areas, because there's a lot of degradation of the environment through cows and donkeys and goats always moving around, so the soil structure becomes too weak. So we need to have a management way of how to bring water closer to the livestock as well, and creating an industry within the communities in the rural areas. They shouldn't just be rural areas for people to just stay in, but also there must be an economic activity. We need to support their economic activity. So this water system, bringing irrigation, and also especially in yeah, Matabeleland and even Mashonaland, animal farming, rearing goats, pigs, cattle, ranching, into ezinjalo. So we need the government needs to think for the people and begin to teach the people and begin to eliminate and implement economic conditions that are functional, okay, within our living spaces in the former rural areas, so-called rural areas, okay, or so-called reserves. I don't want the reserves to maintain the former colonial connotation of these um, impoverished places that were breeding grounds for British colonialists who needed labor. I mean, the British colonialists used the rural areas as a breeding grounds for cheap black labor. My government would like to transform that. So we want a transformative government that will bring about a system in the rural areas that is economically beneficial to the individuals that decide to stay in those areas and not move in to smaller towns. However, we also need to develop smaller towns in those areas, communities for people that are close knit, instead of the sparsely spaced uh, settlement systems in most of our rural areas that is largely based on subsistence agricultural systems. So we need to even uh, promote cooperative agricultural concerns in those rural areas. Building also on this educational foundation that I've been speaking about, that every Zimbabwean must go back to school with these tablets I was telling you about. So I've added about the roads, industrializing the rural areas, water in the rural areas. Another major factor is internet connectivity in the roads and also in small cities and rural areas. I cannot re-emphasize this point that our rural schools as well should be in line with all the other national schools with Wi-Fi connectivity and the education in the rural areas must be the same as that of the urban areas, or at least close to the same. And as we will see an emergence of rural areas that are going to get richer over time, because perhaps maybe if they're resource-based rural area, for example, where I come from in Plumtree, in Makubu, I know that they do have gold there. Villages have started gold panning, and coupled with this idea that I have on agriculture and really um, changing, transforming rural areas into economic hubs, you will get to see a massive social mobility or economic improvement within those rural areas that might lead to better schools. Okay, because they were richer, they've got fewer kids, and they'll be able to perhaps have a better quality education, a better breathe better air, better lifestyles, and you know, I do think that our rural areas could be in the future be one of the most prized areas rather than the areas in the urban centers. So that is the vision, ladies and gentlemen, that I, Nqobani Zondo, am proposing for a government that is going to take over from the current administration, or the current administration as we go into the next election should also be thinking about thinking along the lines that I am saying. So, but what we need is speed. We need empathy. We need a real commitment to change. Okay, not just talking about it, not just saying we are change agents just for the purposes of getting into power and maintaining the status quo. We really need to be ready to save our country and be proud of being Zimbabweans and build a nation that works for all of us. So there's more that can be said, but I'm gonna cut this video here. So this, in a nutshell, it's part of my economic policy. My name is Nqobani Zondo. This is part of my economic policy or my proposals as I envision a new government. Have a great day. So adding on that rural transformation, as I said, we mustn't be calling them reserves anymore. They would be rural areas, yes, of course, because of the population density will be very low. There's a few things that I would think should be transformative in the rural lifestyles. I talk about water. I said clean water, perhaps JoJo's, a system of JoJo's where every rural home should must have a JoJo. And just like in the urban areas, that a car comes and collects rubbish, there must be a truck or bulldozers, whatever they call them, that carry large quantities of water and be filling each jojo in all the rural homesteads. Okay, it should be something that it should be a service that we should offer to our rural folks. Of course, they must pay for it. Nothing is free. Just because someone lives in the rural area doesn't mean that they cannot afford. By the way, so we are going to achieve full employment. Therefore, money is not going to be a problem. So it's cookies affordable. We could do that, meaning that each rural area or village or area of some sort should have a place where they can actually make clean water, and begin to transport, so that we eliminate this thing that the rural folk people. I used to of walking long distance for water. So I'm thinking about improving the quality of life of people living in the rural areas. So now they're no longer walking long distances to get water. When it comes to cooking, let's promote gas, selling gas, use the use of gas in the rural areas. I'm not eliminating firewood completely. Of course, those that do not afford can still go and get firewood, but if we can gasify our rural homesteads, we will eliminate this thing of Tezinkoni, we got your Kamanzi, and and helps the people's health. And then rural schools, we need to build more schools. Now there's a concept that I have concerning rural schools where I call satellite schools, because of this the nature of the rural settlements, they are sparsely distributed, and therefore some children live like 10-15 kilometers from the nearest primary school for that matter. So one of the way of addressing that is having a local primary school, for example, that serves a, a radius of like maybe 10 kilometers, having other smaller units in that area, uh, that I would like to call satellite schools, or satellite classrooms of some sort, that will reduce the distance that students have to travel from their homestead to a school. It must not be more than 3 kilometers. There should be no child who must walk more than 3 kilometers to get to a school. So if the major school is like or 15 kilometers away, the reason why I do it is because these classrooms might not offer things like uh, sporting grounds. Perhaps maybe small sports might have grounds, but bigger sports like soccer might not have those grounds or other thing or other amenities. So there might be a major school that offers that, all the other major amenities. So it's still the same school, but then they usually have some satellite classroom somewhere, depending on the topology and the nuances of that area. So I leave that idea for later development. Also, another option would be transportation systems within the rural areas. If using cars is expensive, you can use a tractor. You can use, I've seen that being used in the rural areas. You can even use donkeys. Okay, that 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 that, they've got a scotch cart that can carry students every morning. Okay, you can work on the design so that they can be seats. Okay, it might be much longer, or some kind of a wagon, whatever. Okay, I like creativity. We can create vehicles that are affordable, especially vehicles that might use animals like donkeys or horses, because one might think that fuel is very expensive, but as the economy of those areas improve, so would be the air transportation to also improve. So I am really focused on improving the quality of life in the rural area. So I don't want the children in the rural areas to be left behind, because after they come from school, after walking 3 hours from school to home, they get home, they need to go and fetch water, which is another 5 kilometers away, and come back and start cooking, like hard labor of cooking in a firewood, and sleep late when they're tired. You see, this whole lifestyle is very laborious and very painstaking. So I need to eliminate lots of those pains. So I'm identifying those pain points and coming up with strategies or ideas on how to tackle them, so that the rural folks could have a much improved living conditions that would be the envy of anyone, really, so that we can be proud of our rural areas. We can build nice houses there. Have you ever seen, if you Google the rural areas of Venda in South Africa, they've got nice double stories. It's in the rural areas. It looks like it's in Santin, but they're in the rural areas. So I envision that in the future, our rural areas will have this kind of structure that will look like suburbia, but they'll be in the rural areas, because as I said, that we need to have this building codification of our building standards, and therefore, and as they achieve full employment, perhaps some of our people will have to stay in the rural areas for some reason, and I think that that will be helpful. Uh, the water, I spoke about it as well, and the rural electrification is a very important thing, and connectivity. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to add on this video.